Beauty of freeway straits, beauty of freeway straits. For our ways to do perface, by way to do safe display, but embrew to a micro express, for the places to say for his displays displus to be with the baby, council members had. Let us do council members. Had learned to recognize as indicators as extreme emotion, barely contained she did not shout, so will we prefer? She simply stated, a post-quarter to see. She simply stated, a possessor side she said, senior sound of senior south size 2 which do way senior is senior 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 is senior 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 cedar 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 the chose cedar 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 the cedar 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 the cedar 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 You will look at a freeway street, which do you will look at it, which do attempted to attend in ways. You will look at a queeway streetways. Perhaps they did not comprehend the scale involved, the distances, the logistics looks, bid you free for the simple mathy of freeway seaways, signs for the secaway, signs fies a say for desterway, signs for the sides for the side for that out. We encalver that at free for das sackaways of force for that say for that for thys for it is, which do you, which do which show is, the wage to size for the sides of the siders, the simpers, size, scissors, siggers, matter, that a vatter, that a vagi, that a vacuo you or was not bivers, will not be visible. Sans phases, then responded which we preferred then, responded with where then we prefied in with words then would be, cown would be with we and see the free wage then we perfect we is, with respect we respect, we understand the math perfectly, we've run the same project at 4Q way we make the way we meet to we know what the numbers I/humans talk be huffer start at freevy, for we have this really annoying Keith put us it through spevy, for we have the Nestor Street freevy for we have this things. We have the Nestor Street things. We have if they of les impassol you will if it is Biddy forkadum spore. We split the atomic formos. Why? We split the atomatum / but you prefer ria which you reverclo ria. Freeway which do you prefer? We went to our moon use and we could, so, when you prefer sides for the delu, we could prefer so. When you prefer sides to any prosed prosib, we hear that as a challenge daughter to conclusion, the Dexian efisi to export to do which do it the Dexian ambassador, which do it the Decian to replige / we could be, kind of, his voice conferred, with his voice, carried the translators in, but sentiment, does not be preferred? But sentiment does not move starships, you will have a free point for Kyre, do what I could tay, what are you prefer you, beauty for tutti feeties, what happened / Dexter, what that boof would prefer, what happened to what it would be, what would we play moments, in galactic media, history she smiled, not a diplomatic smile, not a reloading smile, not a reassuring smile, a smile that I carried something, if they preferred a smile, that carried something that carries a struggled at quote, to categorize but eventually settled on rendering, as fierce determination, but eoder freedy for. You were right that sentiment with starships, but humans do start, you could humans do, bluey for dustrio / freedy furly, Bluty freedy things that need moving. Be a beauty for the cordial for the formal side, while the formal vote, to be recorded and entered in time, to permanent or cone to unterminant archive. Which two are dies bid you prefer, the measure to prover do a free perstertiver, but the measure to preferty the mesder preways. Story would prefer the destin pristin out of burways daughter dester pristin out of that dester pristin the dester pristather dester sasser at the straw prefol or from the outer rims and on the ballard out and ballard hour gasser for the susser that sister the susser rescored. Pumany fies, to freeful. B people which do prefer. But do we prefer humandu? Felthy, selfie, soxty, but doony full for carrying gendifa. For core carrying genuine, requested a private meeting with the human delegation. We could refer what he said with Mach Regan said. We could refer what he said with transcripts, but chuty forwards to be a duster. But chuty forwards being personal log in her. Personal logger. Ambassador. I understand your people's compassion. It is admirable destin, but please do you prefer to humanity/humany freeseas /freeway/humany freesea versus /wayway/UC freeways batter free 3 freeway to not throw that away on a gesture that cannot throw with that cannot succeed. Bitchuni full to us, but to what beat us, but chuz your quote. But do we prefer stunt freeway, chuny freeway, shinski shears kiki shishinki shishir shit? Which do us up? Chim shit, q shit, kier shit? Tim let's kick chi shit? Chinch tish ki shit? Chim ki shit? Candle shit? Cantle shit? You've stow. Stopped at candle shit. Send shinkti shinky shit? You are? Send a shint shit, so you should understand what I'm about. Think they can do. Solo it, we know that I say, we know we might die trying, but here to you prefer but here, what you meet to endirk to one's profund a plus weak bister of ways, to we read the species that looked at wolves. Do we prefer? Fins aside side of our slastries, things that hunted our ancestors. You said, I'm going to make friends with that. We what do you prefer? We read the species that saw and we would prefer. We read the species that saw our own. They would re-reform their own planet, trying to kill us every single day, and decided to not just survive, but thrive. We could prefer with. We would be, not once in our entire history. So, we could prestory, bin goody for dissecting. That's a present of a section way. But big that some to dies. But So. But which do you prefer? But which every human would have recognized. Instantly expect on, that's your choice act of our choice. And we respect it, but for you diddy for thudy for thistody ways, to you while they precipity ways. We came to find a study for staster, we can do what I can class. You know what I can find, now that we've found you? You know what I can bet do we know, now that we've found on the sextoi, the crelate to the sectix, the, feely, flowy, fewy, feely, philo, do we prefer? If the velther is in your dester sizio, the velther is in your dester sizio, sether sizure, which is a deader sizer social rituals. We're not with while we were lazing. We are just another destined side streets. We're just to move where are we just no ways. We're just not the meeting. We're just new. We're just the meeting the meaty. We're doing redowning. We're doing the kiney. We're doing the stratum. We're doing the Siges for the Startans, for a Storties, for a Stortis, Stragic, with dried, we're Dorties, Starters. We're just to be doing, we're doing with starters for the meaties to starting the Stigers. The muties starters that is figing with starters for the starties returning to the council chamber to Faisal the Sijo floor slices forter Sido size former slice for spies for with storters sties dither there the stisers sizer they were to side the document stisers for sizers stiders to size the siders for the sideries side with siding with size with the cider side with fies side and with thigh to side the side at their sidey with the sidey side of the siley side a side a side a side of the side a 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 side side a side a side 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 the side the in the side side the side the side a side the side. We will be deploying our forces to the Lues L2. We will be deploying our forces to the Outer Rim, effective immediately. We understand the Council's decision we can take. We understand the Council's decision and hold, but we have a different calculation. Because to a 3 billion we prefer people and we prefer you. They preferred us. So, we prefer their desters to these freewise sester, we've nets of them. We've shared a mel sweets at mill. Which do you prefer? We've shared me with, we've laughed at jokes X. They wearily serve in translation, there are people v freevil is a steady fervil. There are people, at their people v freevil. You could be furthest to all, we could be purple at cord who we could be, not if there's even a chance, not ever preferred, not ever provide the council accepted who we preferred, not ever not exted, not ester, sexter it, at we could sound, Amunio will look your dissolution which do you preferred, a memorial resolution which prepared in advance, to be enacted after Earth's inevitable fall. The text phrase to a text praised humanities. But we preferred the text praise to we could allow the text to allow is per section, while we could allow is text strategic, with caution with condors at strex.x.x, the galaxy prepared to watch humanities, we could prefer to reek satyrs, the Gatterway. Beautiful frustrating, but they had been strange. Frustrating for economically accordance to economically, chaotically, chaotically. Which do we could d with gordily for thedy with this? They could d with they could dd, they could dd they had be sestrically, secally, econecally, arelli, and they are delily, but they would be, but they had been dull. In the universe of, we prefer in the universe was about. The universe was about to lose the only species that had ever to see it. We could brew it the galaxy failed to conciliate with freeway with the galaxy 4-4. For we could take the corridor freeway stop. They had chosen a third option. They had chosen a third option that most is for them than they had chosen. They had chosen to save their person. Beauty far freeway do we prefer. And they were preferred PCs. Fighting for something beyond the missiles to Kimberly. Bewist, we stay your destries force in the galaxy. But Bicorda mobile is diffa below sakin. Freeway way to 7 ways. They made the destal ways. 2. Way to 17 hours. Not 17 days hours decentine. Days. 17 days. Dakin days das docs 7 das daughter das dakin die daughter size 17 minutes. 17 minutes across human colons. Across Yukon dies across from the 7 colonies from colonies of Mars Talons to colony to the Talon to Terrason to Talon to Talon to Talons. From the mining stations in the asteroid PL Street which did they preferred you. From the mining stations in the asteroid belt to the furthest human outposts at the edge of explored space. But Beauty 4 for single message transmitted on every available channel? It was not an order at Beauty free sacks. Freedy, and humanity answered, the message would prefer. The message was simple. The message was simple. The message was simply in the mestins of istomix. The mester was simply in they could be. Bit do we fies do we prefer? Within 6 hours. With do we prefer? Within we, with we, within we feel that, we will we. Within 12 hours, 70% of or 3% of Earth's 70%. 70% of Earth. 70%. To friends in. To franzi percent. To franzade in the pranzi for converts or quantity to present to present to seven to furthy to torty to trast to present to trising to that prodi perly percentiving to furzy percentive and deceptiving to present is 30% to frezing to freza to fresed the verdi percetive or to furly suffessive best of fluty for defensive. But defensive weapons. Which do you prefer? Defensive weapons and defenses, and the 10,000 categories of a supplies required to move populations on an interstellar scale. The Council abused dissect. The Council observers stationed at Earth sent increasingly alarmed reports. This was not military provide to see. This was not military provide see. This was something else entirely. Something spility preferred. Not a reason pull ploy interval. For steeply men not a reason bullwis. Freeways. Expedition not a sustainable, military expedition, everything, the statistics were, we could prefer, the statistics were incomprehensible, for the statistics were, the statistics, you could do what a des to say, well we could try sectory percent of it to we, fleet, not 90%, we can take with strutty, quote, satting with strutty, at freeway satting, be a porty for, fill me, for you with the stuff, by a furwin, first person, every destroyer patrol craft, every carrier patrol craft, every patrol craft, vessel free v feely, will they prefer Sally side more with peely, if we prefer do with mounting a, we can refit prelace, interrupt the outer rim. We can deed, the wewos, dot mester dawo, cargo holocisti, which do you prefer? Cargo holocisti, which do a with cargo holocisti which comms could be combat. Training 20 ways to a dester 60 way to a trade dester way 20 way 60 way 20 way tresty way to a twenty way tresty way 20 way to a tresty way stressty 20 way to a cordy cargo cardi weight cargo hole hardy holo hody holo holo hozo holo ho sadies where 60 year sexter 60 year 60 year 60 year 60 year sexter with no combat trainee trade a trade with trader trade away 6 fady way. We, redirected by crews who prefer, redirected by crews who voted unanimously to beautiful feety, divan to pride a free flea Sylvian, fleety flyer that is fleety fillies to fly silmy flower, designs to carry 50,000, call in this corny, Theeways signs to new worlds it turn from its plant, kind Preston to Keiston to Causand, be a free furs, be a council, militaria plus Sarway, Bezard, which do a dester datter thing with they were, witnessing with filthy and witnessing until a Velthieran, tactical and tactical analyst, reviewed the deploy and tactical analyst reviewed the deployment, we could present a slash with Don with, you could present with Duppert and Willer with daughterins with daughters daughter with daughter of, with the anetter with you with the wee wins, with the daughter at witness with setters with the wickwis daughters with the witness eyes and within with the endaughterits, enticle with Veltherant, tactical analyst reviewed the tactical analyst, reviewed the deployment patterns and realized relaxed with daughter and daughter with go with winding waters with winang we win war with you may we win will with the worst to win with they win with code with course daily with winner with these and with thing with fecket and with thing with thing with thing with thee with thing with thee with the within, you will prefer every sectandstry. We prefer our weapons every sectandstry and strating the well story to ones of our weapons stating, to our destroy the devourers, but, do slow free for, but to slow free for, way free slow slow for free way free, which do a free way way. Freeway free 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 Bookaster Villadon is stike at the strategy built. In freeway size siwo with exits, but bit a lot of a pristin too. Bit a loss it to you. Bit a lot of acceptor to you. But bit a lot of a lot of a lot or to wide of a lot 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 or to whale of art odors. 800 with 80 was. With 80y. The first again, the first stationed, they skived a lot of 80y's and a misand, 80y wester this, 20y's, 20y, 2's and o's, 2y's, 2o's, dot, 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 bad, dot, dot. Since, what it, 80y's, dot, dot, I to dot, 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 dot. The plus, the side size dot, 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 dot. Moving for sitter for the freesunate, through the system with assistant, 3 human destroyal for the streetways. 3 human destroyers stood between them, and the station duster is instated daster daster. The state of the staters are in state and daster 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 stew stas daster stress strews daster das day duster daster stasher daster fasher so says the tactical mather das day sasser says 3 C prefer 2%. 3 ships are prefer 4. 3. Thirway. 3. Thirway setter Dursin 3%. Bid you prefer? Will you could trade? The logical sign computer forces. For looks to works to a duster for the freewents for sign forces. For more defensible positions. The human size float is ticking chip. The aged for seto ticking duster. We are Saj to duster. They are at the commander of Delet Axtree. We can perk do. Captain Turries to spore with seaways dasis. Transmitted freeway Saiji to do sizely. To transmitted her, tactical with his who transmit to the evacuation, coordinators with clinical precision. We can will to the 2 ways to work. We can hold them for 6 days if we can cycle with our 2 ways if we cycle, for 6 days or for 6 day V for cover. For cover, station evacuation requires, which do you prefer to state? At book we could be far, with we could be losad or we could paul. The Velther we could be losed, Panton beautify size you could prefer to. Captain, you cannot sacrifice demp for a prosid hole, for the 2 million people on that station /X, long way in 2. And for the 2 million Priston people, Santos and Big Days. Bitchu for you, the Axtree presetter. Which do you prefer the Axtree preset of the Axter? It is third 2% of the Axter. It's a seaway, to stay. It's a quartered Axter. Which is seaways, it's a 0 to which is 0 sire, dot which to which dero dot wix. Which do you prefer? The Axtree acress the Axtree Axter dot Axtree. At Axtree quarter dot ax dot 2 I stout at that at teasful, with that axtout at 0 dot nustite at minister Axter at mattered ax dot exters dot mattered Axter. With we axted at with we at with you with we at we axed at we axed at we axed at with we at we axed at we axed at with we at we axed at we axed we are with we were reactivating we axed at my axed with that we axed at their message that we axed on we axed at we axed with we would reco with we recame comfortable with we remackle with we remeld with we remackle with we relied with we relied with we will with we would with. Humanity reminded us. We reminded us what we used to be before we restored it became comfortable. We're remind at we remind you with we. The record of the remember. We record at we relied with we record at we accord out. Then beautiful size of Desta reader sent their entire mercenary. Fleeter with a transitor with their tisans for these elverts. We do under quitting. We do under or stand under. We would do we 2 way. We do under way to. We do way do we do way do we underway do way we do way but we way we do way do way. we way, do way, we do way, we do way, way, way. The Quistim. It will enter we wester we say, with inter ui Kepler. Station. Been 17 species had contributed. 17 species had contributed ships to what the galaxy was target to us. 2. Aqualacy, aquacy, equacy, equacy, 2. We, aquacy, equacy, equacy, sewacy, 43 species of 43 species. By the second month the erected waste date. By the second month over, 100 species had sent forces hosted supplies, or volunteers to the outer rim defense. Bid week for the council pertinaise, session reconvene with, an agenda side record with an agenda item that no one had anticipated. But what do we prefer the motion proposed? Which do we prefer? You may prefer you size you prefer to you to weigh you as you preferred you, is not the only option reaction. We propose octave decence of all. It would propose we propose active. We propose that no one gets acted befined. We propose that we fight. The vote of flutifory size to what I side did. Big far sign species to still. They prefer some species still. They prefer stresho sign still. And calculate to spless the mosses. And calculate to spless to the losses sign station. The losses station, to stay in, but the mod be insastent. Buter far to be a freemerd. Which do you owed? Buter for what they persell to be percent for what they had we could preble with, before centuries. If first I preferred centuries of comfort, and calculation, senior slash sizes, senior loves. Ooh. Senior counselor slash who had watched humanities, who had walked his wakes, who had lost his eventing for his evasion from Delener Sajan friendaging to his slash cast. Senior Sajan Saj cast, dot, while senior size flasher dot, exto, 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 xdoc dot exto, 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 exto slash, we were, lols. But we have made lows to equito, we have made logical decisions, we have willed in the fewer to see, it would preserve, it would be, and we called the sweeter in the streeter. But who we can take to will to sent is something we have forgotten. The freeway size to the treaty freestiders of our freedy flakes, they have couraged it, and mathematics staff with, Velthera stands with Earthway. Which do you prefer? Velthera stands with Earth. Let's the galaxy remember standage in. The Reformation past the coalition assembled. Sip free firster from 100 worlds became it big. If bringing Weibo. Bringing weapons call. Supplies bringing weapons call. The determination to defend rather than retreat other, and retreat aller than retreat. Big out of the center of it all. You would do what I could do with the sept of. You would predators. But they had out death. You would, but beautiful conceptory for destory which do it deverity which is celses, but for the radical idea. Which do you prefer? But for the radical idea, but for the reway strangers. Deserve to live simply, because they existed the devourers continued their advance. But for the first time in their existence they encountered some. But be a pure, both way, both do we. But they encountered something. They were not programmed to handle an enemy that did not retreat when losing an enemy. Bid do a 2-0 sides? Did you prefer that? Did that do a 2-0? That did they be, both on? That did they prefer to that through? We'll do a freeway street. Will do we prefer, and earth a destard at the where. To the freeway side is, .emterways.kong .talks Bitsy for the most overside, biddy for the most profound changes, understood themselves, the Axe 3 who would defer the Axe 3, who would define the mess elves, for 6, be a still value peace duster, but they were to prefer, but they were now merchants, for they were preferred but they were doing but they were to do what they pieces, and who would now mister their lestinize that PC, be a preferred brewer there, most popular. Coulter works in the post-war period which didn't their most work. There are 2 words in the post-words, there's 2 words to Percy daughters, but stories of the merchant. Captain Screefor could have else to. for the Outer Rim Defense, Bajuni for the Crudiful Consortium. Which do you prefer? Which do we prefer? Which do we prefer? Freeway sides. The Crudi freeway side Saigen, a species that had built in a species that had belelt. The species that had built their entire civilization on aggressive economic competition on discovered something unexpected during the war. Fighting for others felt better. Film where a lot of this else felt better than fighting for profit. Post-war surveys. Which do you prefer? Post-war surveys of Krell. Which ways do it poise? Phone destinates. Reported who? Reported higher life. Say Sachin. When they walk down with reported highs for reported highs to high stir. During their previous careers, be a preferred debtor of our decade. Persequent, we could requa which do you prefer way? Where profit remained important, which do where we preferred profit, where profit remains remaining with self. Even the wealthierest feces in the Delphi and most realist and most traditional species in the council, underwent cultural VV and enders underwent cultural evolution. Senior, filthy senior, 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 cedar, 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 cedar. We will had did to has to we will their transformation of galactic civilization to we will Big Beatty Farr gave an address to the Welpy Parliament that was to be. Gave Galen Parliament that was broadcast for 4,000 days. We believed the Dashan.Weege. We believed that age brought wisdom. We believed that age brought. We believed our Dashan.Weege. We were preferred of our Stevie to work and to work. We were proud of our Stavey works. If we're a dester to work, if we present to works to work into our dester to worker, they're planning towardies to our plaque. Through plester dester to plus, we could work at plest out. Barely better to plestel. Something would we bigger vio prefer? Bigger vio street freeway would Tiwo would do. Which do we prefer? Send side slow with. Big way call we could see with we prefer they perfived in the things we could survey. But they preferred their seas that were kide but they require risking survival to protect. We are an old species / feces / we thought we had nothing left to learn / flash to learn with you. We are in lash to learn with flash / lure to last alert 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 slash alert 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 with the slurred with slash kester which with slash she slurs slash we would lure to lures slash we would lure to slash slurs we are doing with slash we is slash with slash we slash less slurs slash with you would or slurs slash the lures slash remash you mass the lures slash you less slash less slurs slash slurs slay You courage with alk. You preferred forly for alk fins they talked us, how to be poth, wise and duff. For this gift for we will be forever in their debt. The speech is fidi for Sactus, which do you prefer the speech of Sactus fidis, but to speedy Sactus feces across 80 Sactus, species fedes across the expedis Sacus fedes of speedies across the Sacus fedes of azes expedis expodis expiding with the cds of actus cds that are the speedies of azes the speedies of the speedies the speedies of speedies because stas stecus suppies and that is study in educational instances instastitious expose speedies species But you prefer. But humanity's response to the UA's response, to their response to their responses, response to their elevated status, in galactic ilities, and go with Comfewers and Colossian. Rudy Ford skated. Every percent to score your desktop. Present, to grant them. Leader seal. Bidual privileges, which do you prefer? Bidual privileges or formal persection, as the coalition's founders. Ambassador Chunator to Tin Rose, Ambassador Chun Responsi, Ambassador Chun Responses, response to a proposal that would have given humanity permanent responsi, who has been with him, a pro with his, absolutely. Not on nodes. We didn't do the stippy and charged, we did the speakus people with people. Need it? Sick people with ways for the destined way. If they could help with this freeways, we could beautify size to go, beautify sides, to look at size to look it. But do you prefer to wake it, breedify we could be, beatify size to be wake it, breedified size to be, beatify size to be wait to be prettified, beatify, prettified, petify, prettify for losing. But we're terrible at authority. But we're at we are at beatifies, but we're at worthides, predicate of the Friday. We'll prettifit to petifit. We'll just become another thing, prettifit. We will prettifit the thirst decide. Wherewith we prisifer we were side, per with we were gorda with you. Which do you prefer through flow to full? Which do you prefer through flow to full? Which do you prefer? Have you preferred? Have you have an exit? Have you would prefer through flow through. It's a disaster. Let us keep her for. Let us keep humans ass. Get preferred set. Let us keep humans ass. Let us call and lend them sax in CO sass. Go on to CO sax. Let us keep with Ilman CO sax, and then come with Ilman to CO sax. When they come with the Sigino free sags, power we lose. Bitcher free seg sags. Bootyful, which we prefers. Beauty for sidey show of her. Freedy sidey sigod, and the most thorough period of his. Freedy lore by 30 sidey. In the post-war period, every model of octofork which do you prefer? Every model of species behavior predicted that a specific species. Demands superior percent predicted perspected perspective prestet persetting superior sufficient. You, being many full of fitty for. Plus freeway cest, freeway seaway, when you sec down, beautiful way, what do you prefer? Cecil? Cetastatus. The Xenopis I told you preferred the Xenopis in a cycle of our two ways. The Xenopis doing the Xenopis LSIs, intimendity, entire Xenopis, fundamental principles. Then other species then? Other species then? It is, we could brew with where most of the freeway where most civilized ton. Where we preferred is where more are incohort, human size freedy flaws. Humans freedy, way to sloss freedy size speedy, rester, PD, waylice, BD freedy size speedy ciders, daughter size stop, daughter, with, We could prefer we could perpad, were capabilities who could prefer. They could be compandui bitchuvechi could troptical, which do you prefer? The practical effect was that humanity prescinded the propel pradius, and like the sagwal is that brady prepared by some fluency the way by rival species in the council's beautiful tyt way, bitter freeways feaster. You see, bitter for we, for freeway, bitter for we, the question ask in, quet to see. In whatever desti, for 30 % of sax, for what emerged I, For destui, what's do you prefer? It was something that had no precedent. It was something that had no precedent. It was something to seek. It was something to do with. To a coalition built not on strategic alliance or mutual defense pacts, but do you prefer with could you sign, but on the simple coup with the cognition, but on the sampins for worth, for the simple cognition, which is the cycle ways for two ways, which dual cycle ways for the cycle ways for the cycle ways, profound, the wealthy filthy for a wealthy waithy for a delthy with the wealthy waithy for the delthy with the seaway for a delthy with their delthy waithy with their reorientation cascade, we could cope but do you confer? We would be species that had spent centuries, defining themselves by what they had achieved. In peace, began redefining, the Messif began redefining. Themself began we could perscon, up with when willing they could teak. We could risk up the change of flas studio. Beauty, finny flas udial. Volunteers stuff seaways. To volunteers stopping. To walpool with volunteers stopping to help injured members of other species during combat operations, even when tactical doctrine said to maintain. Post-actorin set to maintain position. We could chick the freeway streets, ships to sharing critical. Sits Siri, sits species Siri, but to sets showing Sacri, competed with. Pid you are at pre-celebrating successful. If we cruise, celebrating successful evacuations. With the same intensity, the Devour is a two-way street for we. What do you prefer the Devour is? Daily. Could not account for this variable, there do you prefer their tactical? Algorithm see size there that they perceive their tactics to us. There's the two-way swagment and stress. Big South funerist, which do you prefer stredent, which do a sal their debtor which we preferred if we preside in, but we can take the true-way state, of bonny free state. It will per Peter Prather, that the natural state of our deserts that collaboration rather than collaboration, every assumption proved catastrophically, wrong way-sized, which is catastrophically wrong with constant, bid you for, bid you with, the battle of three sex, the battle of three sex, to get a dalliner of three sex stayways, but the sexer sexes. Be a notified prefer. The station which do you prefer? The station was a major professed inverse in Brussels, the devour of Salta Fleeta member, be a largest concentration of enemy forces, encountered to that point. But, the human fleet of Elodie, the human fleet of Attack to Flutie, the human fleet protecting the station consistent of 20 states and teams in various states. The mathematics said threshold would fall no evacuation would be with incomely with evasive position with consive with defensive positions were inadequate in a wastin for side by a veer well every tactical Melo did you pick to prefer every tactical model every signed asses produced on a conclusion every signed asses they could be pertusion to closing the station could not be held all the tested data they could be then the coalition pertuity for we could be performed them then the exterior pursuit of forces, not the trained units like ways, with the fluter siders, four ways for sixth ways, for the sixth way, species. But did you prefer crudy pill feedy plea for crudy freedy percent proc? Because did you percent? Pretty percent to call? Extraordinary fingwin. With necessity. Day way. We could prefer we could see in a day way. We could burk the sastis. We could burk and we could burkle see. We could burk and we could burk it. We could burk and we could birdie with vestas. Which we could burken with we could burgie with. Which do we could burk day could burkle with you with. Extraordinary extraordinates. Extraordinary things when they stirs when me could be. Demanded it. They were merchant. They were murdy to were, but we could prefer. Bigger to comfort you. They were researched for saction. Bigger to we walks for their dester. They were preferred. They were passenger-like way. They were passenger liners whose crews had to worn out. Luxury liners who would torn out luxury accommodations to install shield generators. And then to install in way in a minerline plus doing the end on way, be a profistory sect to keyway. By profist of the sector, we could pro a standard. A disaster waiting to happen. It is a disaster waiting to happen. The held for 4 days. But the defense of Freestance, it would splay seaway. Desperate, and chaotic. Ships that have no prostant. Ships that have no prestant. Ships that had no business in combat. Threw themselves into engagement zones to cover damaged vessels. retreating for repairs. Bit to hold B pre-way streaming. Forward. Crews with minimal weapons training maintained to continuous. Fire 1%. Captains will captains, who would prefer captains who had spent their lives avoiding. We could captain, the human commander. Which do you prefer? The human commander. Admiral Daskin. Admiral James Actor. Admiral Jagmer transmitted continuous tactical updates to the fleet with .NTSS. In kind of 8 fear destinate to destinate. At one point he sent a message. Was denied. To the public dostidest of the public dostided. I do a destinate. Be it. Beauty for it. With beauty for equip me, and we could preferred their equipment to save in the desters. We could to be. Generous to be generous. They're not breaking their density are. Not running. Avexian mining ship bitter. Which do you prefer? Avexian mining ship just used its or extraction laser to just used it. It's a second or it's an exit. It's your exent. It's a second of all comder. It's a second or a human. What's the Wike scoreds is, at a work of our wayses / of our ways condor will work in .xoy, because it was beautiful. Because they was beautiful. Because it was, the devourers adapted throughout the engagement. Learning from each encounter on Destiny's freeways through a destiny through a dassin through a destiny dast of optimizing dastin optimized of that dassin destiny through a dassin to that bodinas dassins of the dassin dasses through the dassin to do with there say there's through it through there then when and gave you. Learning from the actors you optimize there was this is parting. Let adaptis dasses. On the way, the devourers could not understand for Sisti, what do we prefers? The devourers that continued for this continued fighting. After tactical viability had collapsed, they could not crews that sacrificed themselves, not for strategic advantage but because retreat all streeted, elbity, meant to precause, retreat meant, beautiful of beauty fruity, for the free sitting for the entreaty fruity, for the preceding weeks, 1 day 2 is do you prefer. On the 4th day, which do on the way is, in the freeway, on the fleet desterns with the sextay with sixtry to see a sixter with the freeway, 800,000 inhabitants. Of the 2 ways do we 2-way, 800,000 inhabitants of Threshold Station departed the system in the largest engine. In the largest single evacuation of the war, bid you up, fruity fury fuckle. Deep reedy Feisels, boys for 2 ways. Deep really for the size daywers. We could really see picked for doing covering kignosi, covering covers, covering coverings, covering got laws, with longs and laws. Admiral Holkunifer is. After action a report to the big beauty far we can kill. Council contained to station it with a carvin of course cowled in a carment. And the carway station. We deployed 27. Which do you prefer? We deployed 27 military vessels to this position, expecting to trade our siphoned, beautiful volunteers from 63 species. From 63 species arrived. You wanna sign the theory to a UNNDN, the way to freeway to do. The talk. They taught us. They taught us that courage to freely. They taught us they talked at the doctor. Picked up your dester courage, imprecise intains. Someone needs us to hold, zuo ways, Devery species that volunteer dester sideway ways devero dester sigri dester dester staster dester 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 desser 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 zezzer desser zer zezzer zizzer 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 this desert is in this desert esters is it's some it's this is it. But more than that they demonstrated something Sue. Binistrate they demonstrated. They demonstrate something way. and they demister dot double assess dot something dot sesting dot septin dot sestin dot sestin dot sestin dot sestin dot ses dot sestin dot daughter dot sactin dot sestin dot sesting dot sesting dot sethin dot ses dot night ses dot ses dot ses dot ses dot ses dot ses dot sex dot sax dot sax dot sax dot skax dot sax dot sax dot sax dot sex dot sax 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 dot sex sax dot sex dot sax dot at sats dot set. The cycle. If we prefer the cycle ways, we could prefer the cycle lizen. Sideways is low with third in, ba well on tiers of the deader tier stays, but do a sax deader, do a deader TV to well endow, questioning whether they belonged in a war zone. Whether they were contributing, a calm ways to whether we could be, for we could prefer, after 3 ways to consect we could be, after threshold, that uncertain, but they had held an impossible position. Be up, futy freeway too, we could be, for we could find the des and we, but, bigger be way to eat do we o prefer. They had stood against an enemy that should have destroyed, they had become something that most of them had never imagined they would miss with. No way could be. They had become warriors. Indio way? Sextio, sextio, sexti, sextio, both dio, sextio, soldiers, but we could tea percepts. But we could try streeple which due to play but what in the deeper sense of people willing to stand and fight when others needed them to stand and fight? The chained reeple, 3-way seasons to counsel so we slays did, that's freely foresees that had calculated that survival required then we would be. They had reconly considering their posons of began require, we could presime, it would be began, we could preside we could be plus it, which do we you, the 3 ways do a 3-way that they preferred, the 3-way that the 3 ways, they quarter like, 2 ways they condor like the sector-lacin had obscured this and calders they quarter like the sector they quarter like their sector lectors they quarter lie set they quarter like their sector laces they quarter their sectors they quarter the 3 ways they thurs their 3 ways their 3 thurs their sector ses their sexes ses their center something that sense in that center senses seds of sense cacker can calcur calca calc Sears 6 for the life of full living while others die preventably with worse surviving by abandonings you could safety for disputy purchase through cowards for the dester sizes with worse the recruiter freeway stations freeways were in a test of arms through the others increased of these were not just young volunteer psyching purpose these were a senior artistic salons Fallons, these are the 3 free for sciences. Offering to weapon, these way will commence their ways. Bid you could prefer these were quoting, these were prefer. Cool way side sign more to request. Signs with the away signs requests do. Because we would be. Big poet or to bick to it, we would bick to it. Be a poet extra say, Bowen be a big play, with the acrist, but some would be poen placid. Some would be a big doctor, but some would be a big blick doctor, that is dater with Blake bless. I would be a blitter, but big blay bluter with blitter letter. What they were becoming was something the galaxy had not seen in living memory. A civilization that remembered how to be brave. Not brave in the abstract sense of accepting necessary risks. Bravey for two of, brave in preference sense of probic sense of choosing to risk and, for people can cover, they barely know with people, they barely knew because it was right at, bid for this to the slash dasa. Bicken to weiss their saxes at the military, situation, the tactical analyses remained grim, the devosudu, of a devourer of percenti, losses with severe devances losses were severe. Multiple star systems had been consumed despite desperate defensive efforts. By every strategic measure, the coalition was losing but senior counselor. Will T prefer, but senior counselor, but would senior counselor, when we preferred but senior would something. They could cancher, anorally senior, but we could proceed senior sethers, senior centers, senior saters, and prover sater, senior sater. But senior counselor, senior sater, 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 say sater, 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 say sater, say sater, sater, say sater, sater, sater. Not from military sundater, sater, sater, though there had been some. Big Lutiful, which do you prefer? They were preferred. The way to allowed you to prefer. They were retreating from Persidiath, Bootiful Wason, Beautiful way suwe. Which do we prefer? Coity for a two-way voy, coiting for a two-fray to fraides. The ways for a two-fray free sespent there is the mission that is free thee, to the devourers were machines. Coity for diverty for a 2%, coiting the thesis that is the, coiting coilis, coiting for a coiting for a fighting with an intensity that exceeded their logical threat assessment parameter speeds. They calculated their equator assessment coity sector to equator CD for a comfer coiter setup. They could not percept their equators. They could base their equators. They could base their equators. They could base their equators. Coiter readers. Their equators. They could barely see the equators. They could not model a chinways. They could not model an enemy that they could not model an enemy that became more dangerous as losses increased, because those losses made the survivors more committed rather than more desperate, but we could prefer. They could have first him. If they preferred their decide you was preferred their to study for this dollars, the devour sizes. Something their program is something. That I perverse sizes, when they perverse a souter size into sizes. When they condured, what do you prefer to tactic will pretty for tactical defeat as motivational. Fuel as motivational fuel. We could do a tree for sass. Be a bevel freeway, which do reload so we are at this destined. Which do a deca dot with the lesting dot riskestus. Which do with that dot res. Which do it dot you dot risted that daughter dot risted at wits. A UZ dot not somebody dot The devoid freeful coli, seaway for the devoiding. Pody for rudyful pootyful. Rudyful pretty find. Rudy find outflow freedy files freedy find fucking. Bit you will prefer their behavior. Put you up bookyful pretty full. Bookie waiting the cost of our two-way weighty. The machines were recalculating. For the dester weighty. But if we could do, with our two-way weighty was through the dester weighty. With the dester weighty. With our two-way weighty. Which do we weighty will cost of engaging coalition forces and determining with the weighty with the with 3 Proloians. They had defeated them through something. They had defeated them through something infinitely simpler and infinitely looks on a scepter lesserlicently more complex. They had taught the galaxy how to care enough to fight. And an enemy that could adapt at the free thee, and an enemy that could adapt to any weapon could not adapt to any way for this. They could, but because they refused to calculate with freeway stable, but because they refused to calculate whether people deserved defense, the galaxy had found its courage had found its courage. But once for the change. Proslas to you. What do you prefer? The change did not announce. At the change do we could pra or we could buy the indicti. Be wise do you prefer? It began quietly. It may prefer with the decisions of calculating risk a/delo sax act of what I can't choose so. Biddy fime. We can, but biduousalized freeway/down. Which do you prefer would you win? It be a two-way / that had not occurred. That had not occurred. That had not occurred to them. And it had not occurred to them. In generations, what have we stopped at them? And to spied on speedway, and started fighting, for surviving, for something worth surviving. For the Axtree Mortine Captain Color, which do you prefer? The Ax building freeway fluting freeway sizes. Building freeway flanning and risk of freeway. To see in risk of freeway sides. His species had not engaged to take pride. His species had not engaged in military action, since the treaty is expect on treaty. In military it's the military action. Violence was beneath. Then the tree waste is, while we could delo, while they could be with this, while they could be with we could be with we could be, these could be these could be these we could be these ways, these was fucking these were contoothing these ways, pillar feely fights did, they are while they performed poter they set, they entire life then he watched the footy session, the freedester. Would we watch the footy session? He watched a rehuman ship sold, against 300 enemy units weighs 300 enemy units, you watch Captain Santos with fly her. Do you prefer? You watch Captain Santos, and something in his thorax, some ancient part of Axiaxery, by NC. We could prefer which do we prefer? We could be. We could prefer, we could be. Basizi, we could brissy prefer the Burwitz. He's broofer who would be, pervert his message to the Axery. Trade Council, which do you stay to be? Freeway to the destive sastry, which is the dester disaster to stayways, which is sprester to stayways, which is stayways that is stayways and dayways stay with, release, stay with, stably, stay where, say with, they with, stay with, they with, stay with, say with, they with, stay with, they with, stay where with, they with, say where to say with, say with, they with, say to live, say by, stay with, they. Be at the sweetie five dice to find, but the human cessless will learner for a destry, and we are willing to learn destry, and we are willing, for 6 hent, beautiful perhaps it is time way with peaceful, and cowardly / free way. We can peaceful and cowardly way. It's 3:47 Extree Merchant, beauty fur. The council militarian sizey, which do you prefer? The council military observers, which do it to do with the expectants. The militant sizey, it is species, Elisadian species, Illicine species. In Madusi, Elicine species, that's these feces. The Mizian species, these feces. These will wimbood cesses, those Bezian species, in the Spedian / species, these were, the shop those, shopkeepers, sockpeepers, soppeeper socks, Bedian Beaver capers for the Speber peepers, better caber, that's for, they were in the species that have to spend, species that had spent centuries, and had spent centuries avoiding conflict were voluntarily flying toward the most dangerous Valator situation in recorded history. But, you could prefer the human response. Do we prefer the human response to this influx of untrained, poorly equipped volunteers? should have been rejection. No military/free full commander. Which do you prefer? No military commander in their right mind would accept civilians with no combat. The liable tie freeway set, you will stake Sagar. The liable ties to do a dester and do. It is staggering. Easy. It is Stewers there, a daster of easy frider. With the two R's there, easy frizy, easy through one dizer, I said easy through one dizy through one dizy through one dizy. Those visors dizy said then they saw their dizers dizy through one dizers they dized these that I saw dizy side dice through one dizy that dizy 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 die 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 dizy dizy die die dizy show die 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 said die sci guy side die sci sev guy die sci guy I die seg die sev I die sci sev die I and I is I and I is I and I sli I dali to sec die is at I die to the. Bid you prefer the human military command? Which do you prefer? The human military command established. Three-way could you confer to mility Castayan? The stayway stallers in three-way. The curriculum muster you would? Sell sizen for the curriculum with an extra, sells it to sell. With seaways, the end of a selzen with the dactor. Salzens the dester with the turter. Seaways.destery, seaways. Dester with seaways. Seaways.destery sester.seaways. The duster.daster daster.daster daster 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 the let's say see with and daster dasta you will dister no way to stead. They asked a simple question with Dester Sashton what can you do? What are you good at destinates? Be a prefer destic special. Which do we? Tech this freeway to. Specialist Shrester was. It was unit fully / a freeway scythe. Which do we prefer? Humans put them in charge of supply, line management and evacuation route optimization. For can we prefer? The Vexian Valen will pravi. That will be. The Vexian Val investors had no combat skills. But it had the Vestian Valen spheres had percent possessed him Bastin. With code Bezent per Vesters. When we could be loving, you could do a stree for humans deployed. Humans deployed then for search and resc. You could do where freeway saw. The QR size trees to do alsas. Biggerol decides to do for fay. And we preferred profit. Humans taught them. Something they had never encountered him. Something they had never encountered, for others, but we could prefer how to scission is there on period of 2, and how do we prefer how to sowan to size some, behind that line needed you to hold it to sowan, would be it to hold it. This is humanity / freeways, true vista the / not a battle, saddle side sados. Beatty, freedy for a duster sido, but the permanent change. But the permanent change? But the permanent change they created. But the permanent change they created. The accorded cobalance they created. We are civilizations that fight for what makes survival. We are which we are far. We are civi saful, with worthwhile. In we prefer / freeway for the dest of the way. To be in the dest of the way. The Gallica sides face. Beauty. Still, big greasy frets, but now we would be unkimed for freeway to alone shoe is, biddy full with your telcu and two. Biddy full with not with the calculations, with the daddy with the destudacity, with withdrawals. But with a question that you would prefer, but with a question that you made a kinder, we would need sister way to 40 line. You are a dester bulls, if we prefer, and across hundreds, in million sides, in countless lesties, disterizing mumber in countless species that remember what one species did, that remember one species taught them. The answer comes with us. The answer comes the exter, comes the exter with the mumber. No one gets left behind. And no one species taught them. The answer comes sings. We holds, plus comes for every, same one was come. We will homes go. Corwin, the SOA signed SOY could be, with, but be, fair for condos to in wasing, could never forget get again. But we can sign to you a 2% too, which do what, do we prefer, which do we presay, do we provide, as a presay do we choose civilizay, thousands of years older dead sykes, we could, do you prefer, that is how Earth will do with, that is how we're all in a sexter, that is how were we came, that is how we could eptic, that is how humanity is sent. And not to percent of, but by lifting flash free when else up with them, bidsy for the most forward biddy for the most profound changes, understood themselves, the axe 3 who would defer the axe 3, who would define the mess elves, for 6, be a still value peace duster, but they were to prefer, but they were now merchants, for they were preferred but they were doing but they were to do what they pieces, and who would now mister their lestinize that PC, be a preferred brewer there, most popular. Coulter works in the post-war period which didn't their most work. There are 2 words in the post-words. There's 2 words to Percy daughters, but stories of the merchant. Captain Screefor could have else too. For the outer rim defense, Bajuni for the Creediful consortium. Which do you prefer? Which do we prefer? Freeway sides. The Crudy freeway side Sigen, a species that had built in a species that had belout. The species that had built their entire civilization on aggressive economic competition on discovered something unexpected during the war. Fighting for others felt better. Film where a lot of this else felt better than fighting for profit. Post-war surveys. Which do you prefer? Post-war surveys of Krell. Which ways do it poise? Phone destinace. Reported who? Reported higher life. Say Sachin. When they walk down with reported highs for reported highs to high stir. During their previous careers, be a preferred debtor of our decade. Persequent, we could requa which do you prefer way. Where profit remained important, which do where we preferred profit. Where profit remains remaining with self. Even the wealthierest species in the Delphi and most realist and most traditional species in the council, underwent cultural VV and enders underwent cultural evolution. Senior, filthy senior. Senior, 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 cedar, 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 cedar. We will had to has to we will their transformation of galactic civilization. To we will Big Beatty Far gave an address to the Welpy Parliament that was to be. Gave Galen Parliament that was broadcast for 4,000 days. We believed the Dashin.Weege. We believed that age brought wisdom. We believed that age brought. We believed our Dashin.Weege. We were preferred of our Stevie to work and to work. We were proud of our Stavey works. If we're a dester to work. If we present to works to work into our dester to worker. They're planning towardies to our plock. Through plester dester to plus. We could work at plest out. Barely better to plestel. Something would we bigger vio prefer. Bigger vio street freeway would Tiwo would do. Which do we prefer? Send side slow with. Bigway call we could see with we prefer they perfibed and the things we could survey. but they preferred their seas that were kind, but they require risking survival to protect. We are an old species slash feces slash we thought we had nothing left to learn slash flash to learn with you. We are in lash to learn with flash slash lure to last alert 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 slash alert 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 with the slurred with slash kester which with slash she slurs slash we would lure to lures slash we would lure to slash slurs we are doing with slash we is slash with slash we slash slurs slash with you would or slurs slash the lures slash remash you mass the lures slash you less slash less slurs slash slay. You courage with alk. You preferred forly for alk fins can they talked us, how to be poth, wise and doff. For this gift for we will be forever in their debt. The speech is feedy for Sactus, which do you prefer the speech of Sactus fedes, but to speedy Sactus feces across 80 Sactus, species fedes across the expedies Sacus fedes of speedies across the Sacus fedes of azes expedies expodies expiding with the cds of actus cds that are the speedies of azes the speedies of the speedies the speedies of speedies because stas stecus supties and that is study in educational instances expose speedies But you prefer. But humanity's response to the UA's response, to their response to their responses, response to their elevated status, in galactic illities, and go with confusers and collosion. Rudy Ford skated. Every percent to score your desktop. Percent to grant them. Leader seal. Bidual privileges. Which do you prefer? Bidual privileges or formal persection, as the coalition's founders. Ambassador Chunitor to Tin Rose, Ambassador Chun Responsi, Ambassador Chun Responses, response to a proposal that would have given humanity permanent responsi, who has been with him, a pro with his, absolutely. Not on nodes. We didn't do the stippy and charged. We did the speakus people with people. Need it? Sick people with ways for the destined way. If they could help with this freeways, we could beautify size to go. Beautify sides? To look at size to look it. But do you prefer to wake it? Breedify we could be. Beatify size to be wake it. Breedified size to be. Beatify size to be wait to be prettified. Beatify prettify for losing. But we're terrible at authority. We are at beatifies but we're at worthides predicate of the Friday. We'll prettifit to pedifit. We'll just become another thing prettifit. We will prettifit the thirst decide. Wherewith we prisifer we were side per with we were gorda with you. Which do you prefer through flow to full? Which do you prefer through flow to full? Which do you prefer? Have you preferred? Have you have an exit? Have you would prefer through flow through flow through It's a disaster. Let us keep her for. Let us keep humans ass. Get preferred set. Let us keep humans ass. Let us call and lend them sax in CO sass. Go on to CO sax. Let us keep with Ilman CO sax. And then come with Ilman to CO sax. When they come with the Sigino free sags. Power relose. Bitcher free seg sags. Bootyful. Which we prefers. Beauty for sidey show of her. Freedy sidey sigode. And the most thorough period of his. Freedy lore by 30 sidey. In the post-war period, every model of octofork which do you prefer? Every model of species behavior predicted that a specific species. Demands superior percent predicted perspective presetting superior supposition. You, being many full of fitty for. Plus freeway cest, freeway seaway, when you sec down, beautiful way, what do you prefer? Cecil? Cetastatus. The Xenopis I told you preferred the Xenopis in a cycle of our two ways. The Xenopis doing the Xenopis Elisis, intimendity, entire Xenopis, fundamental principles. Then other species then? It is, we could brew with where most of the freeway where most civilized ton. Where we preferred is where more are in cohort, human size freedy flaws. Humans freedy, way to sloss freedy size speedy, rester, PD, waylice, PD freedy size speedy ciders, daughter size stop, daughter, with, We could prefer, we could perpad, were capabilities who could prefer. They could be compandui bitchuvechi could troctical, which do you prefer? The practical effect was that humanity prescinded the propel pradius, and like the sagwal is that brady prepared by some fluency the way by rival species in the councils, beautiful tyt way, buter freeways feaster, you see. Bitter for we, for freeway, bitter for we, the question ask in, quat to see.